I thought this first 15 marker, we can't really do the 25 here because it's on exchange rate policy, which is something I spoke about last week, but it's quite a complex topic. So not yet, not yet. But the first one, even though you haven't done this topic, we can do it. We can tell you how to approach a 50 marker on a topic you completely haven't done because it's so easy and it relates so heavily to what you already have done. So what you may not be familiar with, I would imagine, is this term, expenditure switching policies. But you should be familiar with what this means. Reduce a country's deficit on their balance of trade. So basically, balance of trade in goods and services is net exports, i.e. X minus M. A deficit is specifically when that overall balance is negative, so M is greater than X. So we are being asked, how can this certain kind of policy be used to solve the problem of a deficit where net trade is negative, where M is greater than X? So all that really remains is what is this term expenditure switching policies? And when you cover policies to reduce the current account deficit, which for some reason I've never quite fully understood is done way later in the specification than the rest of the current account topic. But when you do policies to reduce the current account deficit, you'll be introduced to these two terms, expenditure switching and expenditure reducing policies. And these are actually just so simple. So expenditure switching is any policy that gets consumers to switch from imports to domestic goods. So that's obviously going to reduce the deficit, right? Because if your import value is greater than your exports, people are buying too many imports. If you can make them switch, stop buying imports and switch to domestic goods, then you're good. You're good. You'll solve your deficit. So the way you do this is typically by making domestic goods cheaper, by making imports more expensive, or by changing the currency price so that it effectively changes the relative price of imports and exports. So the currency price one, don't worry about, because again, you haven't really done currencies in detail, exchange rates. But the other options are very interesting. So expenditure switching, we said you could reduce price of domestic goods, and that means consumers will switch to domestic goods. They will switch their spending, expenditure switching. Price of domestic goods could go down, or if you can increase the price of imports, then you're good to go here. So what I'd like you guys to do is think with your knowledge so far, how might you achieve this? What might expenditure switching policies be? Hopefully I don't need to tell you. Hopefully you can work it out by yourself, right? How can we make domestic goods cheaper, or how can we make imports more expensive? Now, whilst you have anything about that, I will try and explain the concept of expenditure reducing as well. So expenditure reducing works in a very simple way. Reduced income equals reduced spending on imports. So I'll go over that one in a little bit, but Niati has said subsidizing local firms goods, that would increase the price of domestic goods, that would work. Although can we get a bit more macro potentially? Subsidizing local firms sounds more like a micro concept. How are you going to relate that to macro? And remember, we've done our key policies recently, the demand sides, the supply sides, what have you. So Niati is right, she's spot on, although I would ideally like policies that are very much sort of macro, classic macro policies. Mira says fiscal policy, but Mira, but what contractionary, expansionary, the tax government spending, like yes, but like what kind, right? Because if you're saying expansionary fiscal policy, It's totally the opposite of contractionary fiscal policy. So absolutely fiscal policy could be useful here. I hope a lot of you are thinking about fiscal policy, but you have not said what kind of fiscal policy, which is crucial, right? Absolutely crucial. So if we want to decrease the price of domestic goods, what do we want? What kind of fiscal policy do we want, guys? So do we want to increase AD or decrease AD to decrease the price of domestic goods? All right, well done there. Contractionary is what we want. So hopefully the rest of you will think that as well. Contractionary fiscal policy or contractionary monetary policy, in fact, any contractionary demand side policy will decrease the price level of domestic goods. So this is super easy. Explain how expenditure switching policies can reduce a deficit on a country's balance of trading goods and services. Any contractionary demand side policy could be used here. And it's only 50 marks. You just got so much to talk about if you know what you do. You could do increased interest rates. You could do quantitative tightening. You could do increases in income tax, corporation tax. You could do decrease in government spending. You have got it all, and all you need to do is explain that contractionary demand side policy decreases AD. This lowers the price level. This makes domestic goods cheaper and will therefore reduce a deficit on the balance of trade. So very good. What else? Supply side policies, guys? Anybody thoughts on supply side policies? Oh wait, again, just in case it's not clear. What are our thoughts on supply side policies? Sorry, I did go fast. So we've said demand side policies, any contractionary demand side policy will lower the price level, which is what we want here. What about supply side policies? Because that help us lower the price of domestic goods, get people to switch to domestic goods. Mira says interventionist supply side policies. Good. Just interventionist supply side policies? Any other kind of supply side policies? I mean, what's the overall objective here, right? And market-based, yes, perfect. Any supply side policy will decrease the price level. There is no such thing as contractionary supply side policy, so we don't even need to worry about that. Basically, any increase in aggregate supply or longer aggregate supply or decrease in aggregate demand counts as an expenditure switching policy because it reduces the price level, which makes people less likely to buy imports. So this is just, even though it's technically an advanced macro topic, it's super easy to answer this question just with your basic knowledge of policy so far, as long as you have an idea of what expenditure switching means. So in terms of this second route of increasing the price of imports, if you think about the last question we did, you could just achieve this by increasing tariffs. So if you want me to list all our possible options here that we've discussed, increased tariffs or possibly other forms of protectionism, any contractionary demand side policy, which includes at least 4 or 5 options, any supply side policy, which includes at least 7 or 8 options, and exchange rates, which we haven't really talked about in any depth. So this is really just great question, really nice question. As long as you know what expenditure switching is and your basic policy and ADAS knowledge is in place. So to go to this other idea very quickly of an expenditure reducing policy, these are really fun. I really like these policies. They are brutal. Answer me this, guys. If I take away all your family's income next year, how many imports are you going to buy next year? Take away all your income. No job, no benefits, no income. Not allowed any money. No income from anywhere. No dividends, no interest. None, right? If you have no money, you will not buy imports. So what's one way to reduce the number of imports your citizens buy? Take away their money. Really nice and easy. Just deprive them of income and they will buy less imports. And this is an expenditure reducing policy, right? Because you are reducing their income. You are not getting them to switch their spending from one thing to another. You are just getting them to spend less, and that includes spending on imports. So yes, what I mirror, this could be things like reducing benefits, which is a fiscal policy. Again, any kind of contractionary demand side policy will actually work because every decrease in AD will lead to a decrease in GDP, which means decreased income on average. So benefits are a really nice one because I think it links so clearly to what, say, lower income people have to spend on goods, including imports. Or tax is another really good one because if you do increased income tax, then again, people have less disposable income with which to buy imports. But technically, any contractionary demand side policy, again, will work here if you got a question on expenditure reducing. Because it will decrease income. And if people don't have income, they can't buy imports. So, okay, hopefully this makes a lot of sense. And, you know, not that we necessarily need me to remind you of this at this point, but I've said it so many times, ADAS is just so central, right? We can take a topic that you haven't even done, and I can define like a couple words, and then once that's done, we can more or less tackle the whole thing. Like other than AO2, which I haven't discussed even a little bit today, you pretty much like do everything you need for an A star here, other than the AO2, just with the basics. Don't really need exchange rate policies because we've got so many other options. Tariffs would be nice. You guys haven't done the tariff diagram yet. Don't need it. We've got so many options for this question. Any contractionary demand side policy, any supply side policy. This is a second year paper, but a first year student with a couple of definitions should be able to score really well here.